My mom said, "Your sister gets everything from Dad." I walked away and let them find out the truth. My mother once told me, "Your sister gets everything from Dad." She wasn't lying, just not in the way she thought. Growing up, I was the quiet one. I loved books and sewing. My sister, she was the golden child, loud, pretty, easy to show off. Whenever neighbors dropped by, it was always her they saw. I remember once when I was 10, my mother was hosting brunch for her bridge club. I'd helped cut fruit, wore my niece's dress. She caught my eye and mouth. "Not now." Later, she said, "You're just hard to explain." Dad was different. He was quiet, too. A machinist with oil under his nails and kind eyes. He noticed things. My perfect math scores. He taped them to the fridge even when Mom rolled her eyes. When Dad retired, we thought we'd have more time together. But one small slip on the back steps changed everything. A broken hip, slow recovery, then the wheelchair, and suddenly he was invisible to Mom and my sister. They hated seeing him still. So they stopped seeing him at all. Dinners out, trips away. "Don't worry," they'd say. "You're good at this." And I was. I bathed him, fed him, made sure the garden he once loved didn't swallow itself whole. Then I noticed the money was gone. His bank statement stopped coming. When I asked, Mom just smiled. "We handle it now. Easier that way." They'd taken power of attorney, signed the papers behind my back. They spent his savings on spas, new dresses, weekend getaways. While I was wiping drool from the corner of his mouth and telling him it was okay. One evening, when he could barely speak, he squeezed my hand and whispered, "Don't wait for permission." A week later, I found an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a lease for a small apartment he'd paid the deposit on. A tiny piece of freedom just for me. And tucked behind that, receipts for a wedding venue deposit. He knew about the hospice nurse I'd fallen for. He knew I'd never spend a penny on myself, so he did it for me. When Dad passed, I was the only one there. Mom and my sister didn't even answer the phone. I arranged everything: flowers, church, casket. They showed up late in black suits like they'd lost something precious. After the funeral, they didn't even wait for the flowers to wilt. They sat me down and shoved a waiver in my face. "Sign this. Don't contest the estate. You don't live here anymore." Signed it, packed my bags, took only what matters. Dad's framed photo, his old garden notes, the envelope with my name. 3 days later, my phone rang. Mom's voice was sharp. "Where's the money?" Turns out they'd counted on Dad's account to cover their cruises, fancy dinners, new cars. But Dad had spent what he wanted on me on a tiny apartment and a quiet wedding. They'd never checked the balance. They assumed he'd sit quietly forever, waiting for them to drain him dry. So when they asked for help, I didn't say a word. I hung up, blocked their number. The day I moved into that tiny apartment with my new husband, I hung Dad's letter by the door. They always said my sister got everything from Dad. Turns out, so did I. My mom once said, "Your sister gets everything from Dad." She said it casually, like it was obvious, like it wasn't meant to hurt. But I felt it sharp and silent, like a paper cut that keeps bleeding. She wasn't lying, not entirely. My sister did get everything from Dad, just not in the way she meant. She got the charm, the spotlight, the attention. I got the parts no one saw. Growing up, I was the quiet one. I found comfort in silence, in books, in the soft hum of the sewing machine in the corner of my room. I stitched things back together: dolls, torn clothes, my own heart some days. My sister, she was fire. Loud, bold, pretty in a way that turned heads. She liked glitter, music videos, friends who came in packs. She was easy to show off. People smiled when she walked in. Whenever family came to visit or neighbors dropped by, it was always her they saw. She'd laugh, flip her hair, bask in the warmth of their compliments. I was in the kitchen or hiding in the hallway, waiting for someone to notice I'd set the table just right. They rarely did. I remember once when I was 10, Mom was hosting brunch for her bridge club. I'd help slice fruit for an hour, trying to make it perfect. I wore my neatest dress, sky blue with a white lace collar, just hoping she'd let me pour tea, or maybe just say thank you. She caught my eye as I walked toward the living room. She shook her head subtly. "Not now," she mouthed, like I was a burden she couldn't explain. Later, she said, "You're just hard to present. Your sister's easier." Dad was different. He noticed me. He was quiet too, a machinist, with cracked hands and grease beneath his nails, but his eyes always held a kind of quiet pride. When I brought home perfect math scores, he taped them to the fridge. Even when Mom rolled her eyes and said she should be more social, he'd nod, kiss my forehead, and say, "Brains are beautiful too." When he retired, I was hopeful. More time for gardening, for sitting together on the porch, for stories about his childhood. But life, as always, had other plans. One slip on the back steps changed everything. A broken hip led to surgery, then a painful recovery that never quite ended. The wheelchair came next. With it, he lost more than mobility. He lost visibility. Mom stopped talking to him like he mattered. My sister avoided even looking in his direction. They couldn't stand to see him that way. "It's too sad," my sister once whispered, as if he couldn't hear her. They took more trips, more dinners out, left me behind. "You're good." At this, Mom would say with a shrug. I was. I bathed him, fed him, read to him, cut his hair. I sat beside him in the garden he once tended and told him stories he couldn't tell anymore. I kept him alive, not just physically, but human. Then I noticed something strange. The mail changed. No more bank statements. When I asked, Mom smiled tightly. "We handle it now," she said. "It's easier this way." Turns out they'd taken power of attorney behind my back. They signed papers, drained accounts. They spent his savings on spas, new clothes, and vacations to tropical islands. While I was clipping his fingernails and singing him to sleep, they were sipping cocktails. One night, as I wiped drool from his chin, he gripped my hand harder than I thought he could. His voice, barely a whisper, said, "Don't wait for permission." Week later, I found I-10 envelope tucked under a stack of books, my name written in his shaking script. Inside was a signed lease for a tiny apartment. He'd paid the deposit. He gave me a way out, a life. And behind the lease were receipts. One, for a wedding venue deposit, he knew. Somehow, he knew about Mia, the hospice nurse I'd quietly fallen in love with. He knew I wouldn't ask, wouldn't spend money on myself, so he did it for me. When he died, I was the only one there. He took his last breath with my hand in his. I called Mom and my sister. They didn't answer. I planned everything: the flowers, the church, the casket. They showed up late in matching black dresses, faces stiff like masks. They posed for sympathy and left before the flowers could wilt. Then they sat me down at the dining table. A legal form in front of me. "Sign it," Mom said. "Don't contest the estate. You don't live here anymore." I didn't argue. I signed, stood up, and packed my things. I didn't take much. Dad's photo in a wooden frame, his old garden notebook, the envelope with my name on it. That was all I needed. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice was tight, sharp, scared. "Where's the money?" she demanded. Turns out they'd never checked. They assumed Dad would sit quietly forever, waiting for them to drain him dry. They assumed I'd keep caring, keep cleaning, keep sacrificing. But Dad had already taken care of me. He'd emptied what he needed to, secured my future, left them. Only their assumptions. When they asked for help, I didn't reply. I hung up, blocked their numbers. and turned off my phone. The day I moved into my tiny apartment with Mia, we didn't have much: a second-hand couch, mismatched mugs, a soft bed, but it felt like everything. I framed Dad's letter and hung it by the front door, a reminder of love that was quiet, steady, and real. People always said my sister got everything from Dad. Turns out, so did I: his strength, his silence, his kindness, and most importantly, his trust. Story 2. After my wife's family's lavish birthday bash at a luxury rooftop bar, my wife handed me the $12,000 bill. Once I paid, she threw me out, saying, "You're boring. I want a divorce." Then laughed. "My boyfriend is driving me home." Her father smirked. "You were just a sponsor, always been." I walked out without a word, but an hour later, they called me in a panic. Chapter 1. The check that broke me: $12,000. That was the final amount on the bill they slid in front of me, neatly tucked inside a black leather folder embossed with gold trim. I stared at it in silence. All around me, laughter echoed across the rooftop bar. Champagne corks popped. A DJ dropped a new beat. My wife, Talia, sat at the head of the table, glowing in a crimson designer dress and dripping in jewelry I had paid for. Her family surrounded her, loud, smug, sipping $400 cocktails like water. They hadn't even glanced at the menu once. I was the only one who had. When the server handed me the check, Talia turned with a smirk and clinketed her glass against mine. "Happy birthday to me," she purred. "Now pay the bill, sweetie." I looked at her. Something in her eyes felt off, like she was savoring something deeper than just the attention. I pulled out my card. No one said thank you. The moment the payment went through, Talia stood up and clapped her hands for attention. "Everyone," she shouted over the music. "Quick announcement." I blinked. Tonight was my last party as a married woman. I'm officially done being bored out of my mind. The music dipped, heads turned. She smiled and pointed at me. "He's dull, predictable, and frankly a wallet, nothing more." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her father chuckled and added, "We always told her, find a sponsor first. The fun can come later." The words punched me harder than any fist. Then I saw him. Some smug, muscle-shirted guy leaning against the railing, keys to a Porsche dangling from his fingers. Talia sauntered over and kissed him full on the lips. "He's driving me home," she called over her shoulder. "Don't wait up, loser." Teo laughed. I didn't. I simply stood up, straightened my jacket, and walked away. No shouting, no begging, no questions, just silence. But exactly 1 hour later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, then another, and another. Voicemails, missed calls, and finally, a single panicked text from Talia. "Please come back. Something's wrong." I smiled because by then, something very wrong had already begun. Chapter 2. The Panic Hour. When I left the rooftop bar, I didn't go home. I went to the office. Not my day job. Not the corporate gig everyone thought I slaved away at while sponsoring Talia's lifestyle. I went to the real office, an unmarked building, 5th floor, no signage. Just a biometric lock and the soft hum of encrypted servers behind the door. You see, while Talia and her family thought I was some quiet 9-to-5 pushover, I had another life, one I built slowly in secret. Tech security consulting, Black Ops data recovery, high-value asset tracking, and more importantly, digital forensics. Because you don't get betrayed like that unless people assume you're blind. And when they think you're blind, they stop hiding things. For the last 6 months, I had suspected something. The late nights, the mysterious charges, the way Talia suddenly insisted we separate finances. So, I did what I do best. Listened. I tracked. I documented. That smug guy with the Porsche, I knew who he was a month ago. Daniel Reyes appeared. Suit, tie, lean frame. He walked up to the bar with confidence and handed the bartender a small envelope. 2 minutes later, the power cut out briefly, just long enough for everyone to stop laughing. And now, 1 hour later, I had 29 missed calls and a string of frantic voicemails. I finally played the latest one. Talia's voice was trembling. "Please, something's wrong with Dad. He collapsed. And Daniel, he just walked away. He said something about a setup." "What did you do?" I smiled coldly and leaned back in my chair. Sweetheart," I whispered. "This is just the beginning." Chapter 3. The fall begins. Talia's family had always thought they were untouchable. Old money, flashy names, business ties that ran deep in the city. But old money doesn't protect you from new intelligence. I didn't return any of their calls. I didn't rush back like they expected the boring sponsor to do. I let the panic simmer. Next, I sent a single message anonymously. It went to every guest at that rooftop bar, to every one of Talia's cousins, friends, and business associates. Before you trust what she says, ask her who paid for her boyfriend's restaurant. Ask her where the missing charity funds went. Ask her how many people she's used before this. Attached was a link, encrypted, protected, but timed to unlock in 24 hours, and once it did, the truth would spread like fire through a dry field. Back at the hospital, Talia's father was conscious, but shaken. His vitals were normal, but the panic attack he'd suffered wasn't. Not when he saw who had walked into the bar right before the blackout. Gavin Mercer, a name he hadn't heard in 10 years. Ex-business partner. The one he defrauded in a land deal gone bad. The one he thought had gone away quietly. Gavin was many things, but forgiving wasn't one of them. And I had brought him back into the picture for one reason: to let the old wolves eat the new ones. Talia called again, her voice now mixed with desperation and fear. "Please, we didn't know he was dangerous. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Just come talk to me, please." I didn't answer, but I did activate the second phase. Daniel Reyes' Porsche was repossessed that morning. Turns out those shell companies they used to launder my money were registered using Daniel's social security number. I'd made sure of it, subtly replacing Talia's father's name with his months ago in the documents when I helped them reorganize their investments. Fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud. I had built it like a house of cards, and now I just breathed lightly and watched it collapse. The best part, they thought they were calling a plumber. They didn't realize they'd married a demolition expert. Chapter 4. The legal hammer falls. By the next morning, I was already in a new apartment. Small, quiet, paid in full for the next year, using funds I'd been quietly setting aside for months. You see, I always knew something was off about Talia. The way she never let me see the full books on her family business. The way she insisted I sign things without reading them. The way she laughed just a little too hard when people joked that I was lucky to have her. So I kept records, screenshots, backups, hidden cameras. Every dinner where she snuck off to the bathroom for calls. Every conversation her father had. When he thought I wasn't listening. Every late-night whisper to Daniel when they thought I was asleep. I had it all. And now, so did the authorities. 8:42 a.m., I sat in a cafe, sipping coffee as Talia's father was served at his downtown office. SEC violations, tax fraud, misappropriation of funds from a nonprofit he ran as a vanity project. Daniel arrested in front of his gym. Charges included financial fraud and identity theft, the charity gala they'd hosted. 3 months ago, turned out only 12% of donations had actually gone to the cause. The rest split between Talia, her father, and Daniel. All of it now public. The fallout was immediate. News outlets ran it all. And the video I had time to release, it hit 1.7 million views in 6 hours. In it, Talia could be heard saying to her friends, "He's just a boring wallet. a fixer, like a live-in servant. But hey, he pays the bills. Daniel's the one who makes my legs shake. The world now knew. Everyone she had impressed. Tased the friends who toasted her at that rooftop bar. The extended family who saw me as beneath her. The influencer friends she bragged to. All of them gone. Her brand deals dropped. Her social media flooded with hate. Her family name tarnished. She tried to post a sobbing apology video, but the damage was irreversible, and I wasn't done. Chapter 5. The last thing she heard was nothing. 2 weeks after the storm broke, Talia tried to reach me first through mutual friends, then through her lawyer, then through late-night voicemails that ranged from begging to threats to sobbing apologies. We can fix this. You don't have to destroy everything, but she didn't understand. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth, about respect, about finally being heard. After years of being treated like wallpaper in my own life, I gave her nothing. Not a word, not a reply. Instead, I gave my lawyer permission to finalize the divorce, leveraging everything I had. Her own recorded admissions of fraud texts proving emotional and financial manipulation. Video of her and Daniel bragging about hiding assets. The result? I walked away without paying a cent in alimony. Her family was forced to liquidate properties to cover legal settlements. Her boyfriend Daniel turned on her during his plea deal, giving up everything to reduce his sentence. Her father blacklisted professionally and socially. And as for me, I went silent, vanished from her world, but not from the world. I used part of the settlement money to start something new. An anonymous blog sharing stories of men and women who had been used, cheated, or cast aside like pawns. It blew up. People wanted the truth. The raw, unfiltered version of betrayal. One day, under a pseudonym, I shared my story. It went viral. Millions read it. And guess who saw it? Talia. I know because she tried to comment, to explain, to reclaim the narrative, but no one listened. Not anymore. Epilogue. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's disappearance. I never saw Talia again. Not in court, not in public, not in dreams. And that silence, it was louder than any insult she ever threw. Because in the end, she was right about one thing. I fixed things. But this time, I didn't fix her. I fixed me. And that made all the difference.